Cheers, Lee.
All right, cheers.
Cheers. Happy rainy Friday evening here in northeastern Florida on our porch overlooking the lagoon. And the rain is definitely
Happy Friday.
out. And oh, that's good. We're
Yeah, that's
what do
very
you think
good.
of that?
It's very good.
Very good. That's
like
called
it.
that is called a, what is the name of that? One of my drinks. It's called a Pisco Kick. So it's
Pisco
a
Kick.
Pisco brandy and some dattel, pineapple bitters, and some Meyer lemon juice and a few other things. And
It's really good. I can taste the brandy, like the. You said it's a Pisco brandy, like it's a style of brandy.
well, it's just Pisco. I mean, Pisco is a brandy.
Oh, it is a
It's
brandy.
a type of brandy, a South American brandy.
Okay.
I think this also has
Tasty.
creme de cacao in it, a little tiny bit, so it's got a little bit of a chocolatey undertone.
Cool.
Could it be sweeter? Could it be?
No, I think
You
it's
like
good.
it? You like it? Might have some, it has some stevia in it too because it doesn't have any simple syrup.
Yeah. No, it's good.
That's pretty good. Well, if we're actually putting this out there and you happen to be listening to it, welcome. This is, what is this? What are we calling this? We were calling it Porch Musings.
I thought it was. Oh.
Porch Musings, right?
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking it was just a porch chat, but yes.
It is a porch chat, I suppose. But if we put this out as a video on YouTube, there would be a chat.
It'd be the porch chat
Musings.
chat.
It'd be the porch chat. And, maybe we could put that to some music by the chats, like, I'm on Smoko, so leave me alone, I'm on Smoko. So leave me alone. If you don't know who the chats are, we saw them. They're this amazing neo-punk band from Australia, and they have a very famous song called Smoko, so you can make that out. It's good stuff. I hope you can hear me over this rain. It's been trying to rain all day, and now it finally is. It's needed to because it's been rather too humid for barely into March. It's been hot lately, actually.
Very much.
So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this is one of those Florida rains. That's pretty much a deluge for a
Yeah.
short period, and then it's done.
Here we are in our own little Geigian flood. We're gonna capture Luna and change the world. I'm good with that. I'm down with that.
Ambitious.
Yeah, it's so ambitious. Yeah, we thought this might be an interesting way to see where our conversation goes. We do this on occasion. We just sit out, we have a drink, we enjoy the porch and the breeze and the palm trees and nature and just see where our thoughts go. And sometimes we get into some interesting conversations. I mean, a lot of times we do. It's rather amazing. So we'll see if that happens again. Otherwise, feel free to be a fly on the wall, feel free to pour yourself a nice tasty cocktail. I'm working on a book. I'm at the recipe creating phase, but I've got a lot of them done. I'm tentatively calling the book the Barzender's Guide to the Healthy Craft Cocktail. So I'm your bartender, and this is my barback, Lee. She is also the head chef at the home cafe here in our home. So we have it's a bar
Cook.
cafe
It's
scene.
more like
It's
a
kind of
cook.
like a bistro. Yeah, like you're the cook, right? Not really the chef.
Cook slash barista
That's right.
slash barback.
Yeah. Well, the last thing she made was really delicious. It harkens back to the time we spent together in Brazil. It was a shrimp stew called muqueca, and it was absolutely delicious. It has dende oil in it, which is palm oil. And she also made pão de queijo, which is Brazilian cheese bread. And she made it, it's made with tapioca flour with what else?
Some kind of like farmer's cheese, mild cheese, a little bit of that, an egg, a little oil, a little milk, salt, whiz it up, cook it in a mini muffin pan.
Oh yeah, it was so delicious. I mean, this is one of those things, if you've ever traveled to Brazil, that you've probably encountered, and it's just it's addictive. It's just these little puffy bits of cheesy bready goodness that you just can't stop eating.
Little cheesy breads.
Yeah, if you're gonna have an addiction, that's a good one. Que saudade. I was telegramming back and forth. I spent a good hour today telegramming back and forth with Shiva Shampoo. And you know who that is if you follow the Archaix material probably. And he and I were discussing all kinds of different things, but one of them was music. He is an amazing, absolutely amazing musician, and I shared with him one of my all-time favorite albums. It is the live recording of an evening in somewhere in Brazil. I think it was Rio. It could have been Sao Paulo. I think it was Rio though. Between Gilberto Gil and Jorge Ben, who ultimately changed his name to Jorge Ben Jor. So, but at the time he was still Jorge Ben, and they did this impromptu recording where a number of the songs they literally made up on the spot. So the story goes. And it's maybe my all-time favorite album. You can find it, you can find a playlist of that album on YouTube if you just put in Gilberto Gil and Jorge Ben live album. It should come up on YouTube. Anyway, I was reminded of that because I haven't listened to it in a while, and yet it may be my favorite all-time album.
Really? Wow.
Do you like
pretty
that
awesome.
album?
Yeah, I do like it a lot. I like it a lot. It kind of takes off and takes you with it. You know, like once you get on that ride, you want to stay on.
Yeah, you just can't get off, and the personalities of the musicians are really, really different. Gilberto Gil, who collaborated also with Caetano Veloso and was one of the lead figures in the Tropicalia movement, Tropicalismo. He was and is quite a perfectionist in his music. He polishes things. He's super suave, and Jorge Ben is super improvisational. He has this voice that kind of gets out of control, and he just goes all over the place, and it's beautiful and unlike anything you've ever heard. And sometimes he would make mistakes or sing the wrong words in this live album because it was clear it was just recorded that night in the studio. I think maybe it was already late when they went in, and they had a few, and they decided to do this album, and it became this kind of famous album. But it was funny to see these personalities working together. And they were like yin and yang. It was very interesting, and I know
Yeah.
so the story went that Gilberto Gil, wondered whether they should release it to the public because it wasn't perfect, and Georgie Ben was like, no, we really should because it was really good. And so ultimately, Georgie Ben prevailed. They released it, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great story.
What are some of your other favorite Brazilian artists in the MPB, the música popular brasileira that we listen to so much?
Well, I've always loved Milton Nascimento. It's definitely an all-time favorite.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's been a while. Lulu Santos, I was obsessed with them for a while.
Yes. He's amazing. We need to listen to him again. It's been a while.
Yeah, and then Marisa Monchi was absolutely hypnotic, I feel like.
Yeah, she was great as a solo artist, and then she joined the Tribalistas and was great. In fact, we had a birthing album when our son was born, and I'd helped put that together. And was that right? Was it a collection, or was that one of the albums we listened to in labor? Was it with the
as I
Tribalistas?
recall, and it's a little fuzzy, but I think that was just one album that we played. But we played it more than once, I'm pretty sure.
Because we had been down in Brazil, and we were listening to a lot of really great music, including the Tribalistas, and that was the band that Marisa Monchi was. She was one of the two lead singers. Just absolutely incredible. So please, check her out. She had what was that great Diariamente, right? That wonderful song she has. It's this wonderful albums. Yeah, Diariamente, daily. It means daily, or things that you do daily, and it's just this incredible kind of poem. It almost is a latter day example of what was called a poesia concreta, or concrete poetry, where it just lists things and assembles them together, and you can try to make sense out of it, but otherwise it's just kind of a sensory overload, and it's just so beautiful what she did with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love all of her stuff. So, like, I don't know, transportive, like just dreamy, but I don't know. But like honey or something. Her voice just carries you.
Yeah, it's really. I was also reflecting today, just having this exchange with Shiva, who's on the other side of the world, on some island in the middle of the ocean. And, I am where I am, and I have all of these exchanges with this greater Archaix family now on a regular basis. It's really all these errants and people into this material. It's amazing how much of a desire there is for some sense of community. I feel like a lot of us have been loners or weirdos, or we've perceived ourselves to be that way anyway, or we've been perceived that way, and we've made our way as best we could in the world, but we always feel, a lot of us have felt kind of like the odd person out, and now there's just such an energy around people who are looking at some of these concepts. They don't even have to be full-on proponents of the Archaix model to be part of the community, because I think a lot of people who are just trying to figure out what's happening in our world, are now interacting at a pace that I've never seen or experienced. I mean, it is amazing. And you have like the Archaix Discord channel, and you've got various YouTube channels, you've got the Archaix channel, and you've got people on my channel, which is Crow Rising, and their chats are always, it's not a ton of people at this stage, but there's so much enthusiasm and interaction. Mm-hmm. Aren't you a little surprised by that?
Well, I don't know if I'm surprised because it feels like the timing's right. It just feels like, but it feels maybe because of all the separation during the thing that just happened, that people are connecting stronger in, meaningful ways, and this is just kind of, I don't know, beyond your average meetup or whatever. It's much more of a cosmological gathering, and everyone's just so freaking jazzed and positive, and I swear people could be on that Discord, for hours and hours, just as if everyone were living together, and that's probably why these communities are, people are wanting to get them fired up to just to spend more time in the company of other errands. So it's pretty cool.
I know I spend a lot more time kind of interacting on that level than you do. You like to be more behind the scenes.
I'm much more of a lurker, but yeah. But I mean, the energy is, very contagious of all this. It's just, people are so into it. It's great. And into connecting. I think that's just the biggest thing. There's such a respect, such a feeling of just, I don't know, wanting to vibe together, on this wavelength.
Yeah, and it's actually spilling over into apparently the creation or the potential creation of errant communities, for lack of a better word. There's something going on possibly in Morocco. There's a group of people with Julia and Simplicity Revealed who have land that they're using in southern Portugal. There's talk of something happening in New Mexico outside Albuquerque, something happening in Colorado. Jason and Matt are talking about purchasing some land down in their neck of the woods in Texas and doing something along these lines. And there's even talk of potentially a kind of errant retreat space possibly in Cairo, Egypt. That came up on my recent interview with Karen Kasperlov, the Queen of Courts. So we'll see if that happens, and we'll see if any of these things come to fruition. But the fact that this quickly into the game, so much is happening or wanting to happen along these lines is amazing and encouraging. I had this idea that, eventually maybe one of these days we'll just take off in an RV or something and go visit errant communities, in the United States or Canada, Mexico.
Yeah, that would be fun. A great way to travel. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how all these plans evolve. People definitely have a strong desire to come together in real life.
It's true. Well, the first annual Errants gathering is about to happen down in Texas. Our friend Cheryl Bailey has spearheaded that, and I'm sure that's going to be a wild event. I can only imagine it's going to be really, really crazy. I know that Cheryl and Jason and Matt have put a ton of work into it.
How many people, have you heard any numbers for how many people have bought tickets at this point?
No, I haven't. Not any current numbers because they keep enlarging the venue.
Oh.
So I don't know where we are with that.
Wow.
Yeah, that'll be wild. We will not be in attendance. Our son is coming back from about 3 months in Tokyo that weekend, and or that over that little space of time, and we're going to be picking him up and spending some time with him. We've missed him terribly. This is his first time away, and we've been practicing being empty nesters, and that's been very, very interesting. We've had a lot of fun, but we've also missed our kid, so it'll be fun to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's given us tremendous ramen envy. He figured out, among other things, that you can go to these like Michelin star ramen noodle restaurants in Tokyo during the day, like at lunch, and pay, $10 or $15 for a meal, or less. At night, that same meal, or practically that same meal, would be much, much, much more expensive. And so he's been sending us these photos, with his cell phone, that are just, if you like that kind of food, it's very, very evil what he's doing, because he's just rubbing it in.
The most beautiful ramen bowls.
We want to name our next pet Ramen.
No, he's going to be spoiled on food for sure.
Yeah. I think he was already spoiled at the home cafe. He's eating all this great food, and one of his comments not too long ago was that he missed your cooking, which I thought was hilarious.
I know, and I'm like, what exactly did you miss? Like, chorizo bowls?
Yeah, all of the southwestern stuff that you do. We used to live in Taos, New Mexico. We lived there for a number of years, and that was where we really started getting into, well, before that, we had been in Mexico for a while as a family. So those two episodes really put us on a Mexican and New Mexican kick that never actually stopped. And even after that, we went and stayed in Southern California for quite a while, and we were still exposed to a lot of the same palate range. And, so you just never if that ever gets into you, it doesn't leave very easily. It sticks around.
Truly. Yeah. Burritos are never the same without red sauce.
Red sauce.
Or green sauce. Depending on the day. The mood.
Right. So this is a New Mexico joke. If you're not aware of this, the most important question in New Mexico doesn't have anything to do with politics or romance or philosophy. It actually is a food question, and it is very simple: red or green. And this refers to the red and green Hatch chili sauces. The green is made with the newly harvested, roasted green chili peppers, and then the red has been, what's happened with the red? They've been dried. They've been dried.
They
right?
turn red when they dry, which is
Yeah.
super cool because they're so green, and it's such a different flavor.
And they're both delicious. Like
They're
the best chilies in the world.
The red peppers that you see ristras in the Southwest made out of, the red chili pepper ristras that people hang on their porches that are decorative. Yeah, and if one can't decide which they like better, they order Christmas. So they just get their plate smothered in half red and half green.
Oh, I love it. It's true, isn't it? So.
Oh, it's the best food.
It is the best food, but you make an absolutely amazing red sauce, I have to say. It's one of the best things in the world, and we even do things like put it on eggs or
That's
omelets,
good.
or it's just so absolutely delicious. That red or green question is so massively important. This debate has broken up marriages. When they can't agree on red versus green, I don't know if they can be together any longer. I remember when we were first out there, we met somebody I don't know if it was when we were first out there, but at some point, this guy was buying the red powder for the red hot chili powder. And it's not like he was buying it by the bag. He was buying it by the multi-pound basket or barrel, like kilos of this stuff, right, for like the whole season, right? And the funny thing is that, you know, we both come from the South, and so we have a word here, gravy, and that means something very particular in the South. It's different in different areas, but it's usually a savory kind of thing that's made with sometimes flour with, you know, grease and that kind of thing. And it's, you know, it's a very southern country kind of thing. They use the same word and it applies to red sauce. This is gravy. And it was hilarious to us that was the word, and that they use it in the same way. They kind of put it with all kinds of things.
They have it with just about every meal, like traditional New Mexican households will always have some sauce, some gravy.
It's true.
At each meal. So, anyway. Yummy.
Oh my gosh. Makes me hungry.
Indeed.
Well, if you haven't had the experience of green or red sauce, do yourself a favor if you like spicy food. The Hatch chilies are very, very special. There was a wonderful No Reservations episode back in the day where Anthony Bourdain came through New Mexico and had the green and the red, and they talked about the distinction and that kind of thing. And then he made his way down to, in that episode, to Ted Nugent's compound in Texas.
Oh, that was insane.
It was absolutely hilarious because Anthony Bourdain was rather more liberal and that kind of thing. But, you know, he had a great meeting with Ted Nugent, and it was just a hilarious episode.
Ted Nugent's like a shot in the arm.
Like a shot in the eye. I mean, this guy's crazy. He's really, really wild.
Yeah.
So Ted Nugent is kind of an arch conservative or current rock and roller. One of his most famous songs, maybe his most famous song, was Cat Scratch Fever back in the 70s, late 70s. Very famous song. But he's a total wild man. And is part of the whole kind of patriot movement here in the United States. And so to see him paired with Bourdain, just that in itself was hilarious. You can probably, I don't know where these things are
I'm sure you can find it
now,
online,
somewhere on Netflix or somewhere.
They're quite the contrast, those two.
Yep, for sure.
And yet they had some common ground, at least when it came to good food.
Absolutely. I think they did barbecue there.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, they did some sort of grill out or something, because the Ted Nugent's land is big hunting grounds. People go there to hunt. So
right.
that's something close to his heart. And Anthony Bourdain certainly never turned down a good barbecue of any sort.
No, he did not. No, he did not. I always loved his term for sausages and things like that. Meat in tube form.
Mm-hmm. Meat in tube form.
And there was that one Czech episode he was in. I guess they were outside Prague, and they were doing they were stuffing the sausage skins or the casings and all that, and he was standing there where all the steam was coming out of the area. It was in the wintertime, and he was like,
"Oh yeah,
I'm in a pork sauna."
A pork sauna.
Is this wrong?
No, he was delighted.
Yeah, he had this devilish look on his face. If you go to my art portfolio at pixels.com, it's the Sol Luckman. You can just type that in and find it. I do have a portrait of Anthony Bourdain that I did after he passed, and that's one of my favorite portraits that I've done. So go check that out. You might enjoy that. It's very, I don't know. It strikes me as having a lot of emotion in it. So see if you agree.
Yes, it's a good one.
So you're triple fisting it. You've got a latte that you made, which was delicious. I had one, and you've got water.
Water doesn't count.
And you've got your Pisco kick.
Well, I commonly have 3 beverages at once, so.
When we do our Porch Musings.
Yeah. Have a good rotation going on. Because I can't suck the cocktail down because I'm a lightweight, so I have to have something to drink when I'm not drinking the cocktail.
And I'm a heavy-handed bartender.
Yeah, you do make a strong drink. For sure.
I can't help it.
Makes me think everything out in the world is weaker than it should be.
It is. It is.
I do think things are, especially in some of these more complex kind of newfangled craft cocktails, that like the main liquor gets a little diluted with their, passion fruit, whatever. You know what I mean? Like the more they put in there.
Yeah, and all the fresca.
It kind of waters down. What did we have? Oh, the sangria has Sprite in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was like the most amazing sangria, and we were like.
And we later discovered.
It seems so gourmet. We were like, what do you put in this? And it was like the wine and all these fruits. Oh yeah, and Sprite. He was really proud, the waiter. And we're like, oh, yes, novel ingredient there.
It's like fluoride, MSG, and iron shavings. Just kidding. Man, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, so much has been coming so fast from the Archaix camp and related thinkers and creators. What's the most interesting thing at this point in time, or one of the most interesting things, one of the most interesting questions, pieces of data? When you think about this, and there's no right answer here, but when you think about it, what's something that you've spent time thinking about in the last, a month or something that has to do with what Jason's putting out or other people are putting out in relation to this data?
Well, I guess the main thing that stands out is this Phoenix event with the clock ticking on our 17 years of life as we know it. So I guess if there's anything that kind of bubbles up to the surface, and for me it's more what that'll actually be like, because it's one thing to try on all these concepts, but it's like anything else, like can't really know. And then I'm not a doom and gloomer, so it's really, my mind does not like to entertain catastrophic destruction and dystopia type of stuff. Really, like, I just don't go there, so it's a little nebulous. But I think what stands out is this ticking clock, that mostly I don't think about. But since you asked, I guess the main thing, like, I'm fine with all, like, the history. Like, I think all that's, like, amazing how all that's been laid out, delineated and stuff. But it's nothing I'm going to, like, dwell on. I'm not a history person, so I think that's cool and fascinating. But it's more like practical. And I think about things I would miss, like if we're under a vapor canopy, which, should be amazing on its own, but I really like water. I mean, like water, bodies of water.
Now those don't go away.
Well, you said we can't go surfing.
No, we won't be surfing.
So,
Not if all this is true. No, there won't be any kind of enough wind to generate surf.
So we can't surf, and
Yeah, which sucks.
yeah. Anyway, so it's just more like wonderments, and then I have a very kind of pragmatic and somewhat skeptical mind. So, I'm a believe it when I see it kind of person too. So all this, I can take it all in on an intellectual level. But who knows, what things will really be like. I don't know,
Yeah, I mean, good question. What? How do you balance the knowledge with being proactive while not getting into fear and paranoia and stopping living? I would say one of the criticisms I would have about, it's not a criticism, this is not a criticism, I'm going to introduce a different word, an observation about what we're being faced with with the Archaix data is that it puts one into yet another timeline countdown. And those of us who were aware of the supposed Mayan calendar end date in 2012, some of us spent years kind of waiting for that to happen. There's this Nako Bear song where the line is, it's about, being deceived by these fake end dates, and the line is time-based prophecies that keep us from living.
Right.
So one of the dangers of engaging this material is that we stop living in the now. How could that manifest? Well, it could manifest as going into kind of paralysis, doing what a lot of info heads do, paralysis through analysis. It could manifest as paranoia and super prepping. What else could it manifest as?
Well, I don't know. I mean, living in the future in various ways. I mean, you're kind of summing it up, but people kind of giving up the now for the future, for entertaining what it might be like instead of embracing like their present, like what matters now. Yeah. I'm sure that there's a lot of distractions people could find.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's still a long time. I mean, it is and it isn't. It is when you're in the present. Until these changes take place. And I mean, one can prep, I think there's only so much prepping you can do this early, unless you really have a homestead and like a good spot, for for the future. But otherwise,
and even then, is that how you want to spend the next 17 years, is prepping your little ass
No.
off? How boring. Why don't you just go ahead and, I don't know. I was going to say something violent, but, because that just seems like, a life of death, not a life of living to me. Anyway, I was going to remark on what you said a moment ago about the time lapse that we do have, and, you had several things you said about that. There are so many wisdom traditions whether it's Eastern philosophy or shamanism, where we're told that there is only the now.
Mm-hmm.
That time is an illusion, that we're playing out an experience inside the illusion of sequencing.
Mm-hmm.
And these philosophies all tend to agree that the only way to live is to live in the now. And yet here we are being faced with a very dire scenario in 2040. If you listen to what Jason's saying, he feels that it will get a lot worse before 2040 with the lead up to the apocalypse, basically, with war in the Middle East and all of the Jerusalem scenarios that he's putting out there. So, and it's going to get crazier and crazier if what we're seeing now is any indication, and even if there's a swing back towards things like, fiscal conservatism and that kind of thing, if it's a very strong swing, we're likely going to see. We've been in communism, and it's going to swing into its dialectical twin, which is fascism. So, we're going to end up in some kind of Christian Reich. If we swing as far as we've been into communism, we're going to end up right in exactly what Jason is talking about. Talk about stalking the wild frigging pendulum. That's what this is about. So,
that's what reality is about. Dualism.
So, yeah, I guess what I'm putting out there, or just asking people to think about, not that I have all the answers, but I am asking people to think about how to be present, how to be in the now of their lives, how to focus on what matters now as opposed to some fictitious future, because if only the now exists, the future is always a fiction, just as the past is always a fiction. So how do we do this? And I'm going to suggest that there are different strategies that people might come up with for doing this. There's not one way of going about being in the now. I've got several different concepts that come to mind. I mean, one is doing something super creative with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Write a book. Do a bunch of art. Make a movie. I would even go so far as to say, get into AI art. Use these crazy technologies that are being thrown at us to do something amazing. Use it. It's here. If you're good at that kind of thing, do something incredible. Tell a story. Inspire people. Wake people up with the very technologies that seem to be trying to put people to sleep or, send them down a dark path of transhumanism.
What you're saying is find things that you like to engage in, like every day. Keep yourself connected to your life,
I am saying that. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I always get asked when I give interviews, so do you have any final words of wisdom, Sol, to share with our audience? And, I just stopped even thinking about that question a long time ago, because the thing that I like to say, and I'll say it every time I'm asked this question, is follow your bliss, just like Joseph Campbell said. Because that's the kernel of what I'm saying. It's what puts you in the present moment more than anything else. That blissful state. Listening to music, making music, going to concerts, watching beautiful movies that move you emotionally. You don't always have to be the creator to experience these emotions and be very present.
Thing. Yeah, it doesn't have to be some
brand. Nor does it have to be a big production. Is that what you're saying? I mean, that's kind of what I.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's artists and creators, and there's people that do things, in big ways, but this is much more about daily life, daily inspiration, what feeds you. I mean, it could just be, walks on the beach, or something, that.
Earthing.
Yeah, anything that just, I don't know, makes your soul happy. if you're not a creative output person, then do a lot of taking in, like if that's, satisfying to you.
I like that. Yeah, taking in things that nurture you, things that nourish you.
Learning. A lot of people just like to learn things. And I think that is what compels a lot of people, to read. And I mean, the internet's been amazing for that, but just about anything you can think of that you'd like to learn about, you can find. And usually that stimulates other things that are interesting or, that you'd like to know. And some of those things are things that can actually be useful or put into action in your own life. So,
and perhaps even under a vapor canopy.
Maybe so.
Yeah, we should all be learning serious hand-to-hand combat skills and survival skills, and we should be going on Outward Bound. No, I'm just totally kidding.
No.
I'm totally kidding.
Except for maybe building that very tall wall to keep out the dinosaurs.
That's right, we need our little Edens. That's right, yeah, it gets wild.
No, I just don't want the creatures. I everything else is great, but I don't want creatures, massively large creatures of prey.
Yeah, the first time I see a football-sized cockroach, I'm jumping over a cliff. Just kidding.
You could ride that thing,
Oh my God. Yeah, like a team of cockroaches. No longer do we have to power our engines with gerbils and hamsters. Because they're going to be the size of horses.
Oh my God. Think about the hamster
Talk
wheel.
about
It'd be like a
horsepower.
Ferris wheel.
Ferris.
Giant hamster wheel.
Oh, that's absolutely crazy. That's really, really funny.
I just don't want my feet to get big.
I don't think your feet could ever get big. The rest of you might, but not your feet.
No.
You
Well,
have great feet.
that would look
I
weird
definitely
too.
have a foot fetish. So
Right.
what? Yeah, well, let's steer this back into PG.
PG. We didn't leave PG.
Oh, I guess we didn't.
Maybe your mind left PG.
My mind. I want to steer my mind back into PG. So, one of the things I've been wanting to talk about, and we're not going to go much longer here, just a few more minutes, but something that I've wanted to share, and it came up again today. I posted an image that I found over on the Archaix Discord channel. I posted it on the community wall on my YouTube, Crow Rising. And it was I don't know if it was a Twitter feed or I don't know where the image had been captured, but essentially it was something about 2046 as the year that scientists were pointing out for a major close asteroid call. Right. 2046, like this giant asteroid is going to be passing really close, and they're afraid it might impact Earth. And
Okay.
that is the year of the Nemesis X object impact with Earth that Jason's predicting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a lot of people were writing comments like covering their tracks or whatever.
Right,
I don't
planting
know.
the seed,
Planting the
so
seed.
they'll have something to peg on.
Well, there won't be anybody to read their excuses at that point in time, so I think they're just maybe seeding the consciousness. But there was a comment by a friend of mine on that thread. He's a YouTube friend, someone who's been following my work. A really thoughtful fellow, and he's been digesting the Archaix material for a long time, and he was essentially saying that I've been watching and learning and all that kind of thing, but if we live in a kind of observer-based universe and reality is to a large degree a product of perception, and that gets greatly exponentially increased when a lot of people are perceiving the same thing. How do we know that all these stories we're being fed by Archaix about prophecy and scripture are not creating the very things that they're talking about? They're not part of the program to create these cataclysmic outcomes. And I'm a fan of Jason. I have interviewed him 3 times now. I have lots of interactions. I'm one of his moderators. I support him in various ways. But I had to reply to this comment. There's a lot of really good food for thought in what you said, because I don't know how to separate those things out very easily.
Yeah. The trouble is we don't know that every time we have like a thought, or that even things we think are new thoughts or new ideas that get put out there or expressed or just simply thought about, that creates this churning out there, and we don't really know what we're creating and what is already programmed, or if we're creating the program as we go along.
We don't for sure. I mean, Jason believes it's been pre-scripted and written, and it repeats and it repeats.
Right, and there are these cycles that, maybe have that's recording something beyond just people feeding stuff in, which sounds kind of chaotic anyway. So I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, at the same time, there's this idea that's very much a part of this community's discussion, that through things like the Mandela effect, we're seeing that reality is constantly being edited. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Jason, with a certain talent, was singled out by, let's say, AIX, to be given all of this information using a variety of interesting consciousness and Mandela effects, so that he puts together the very thing that AIX is trying to create. Then he puts it out there, and we all buy into it, and it becomes a kind of meme in consciousness, and lo and behold, we create the apocalypse. Otherwise, it would have never happened, perhaps.
Well, you're talking about like time malleability at that point too, because if these things have happened before, like before Jason,
but is that just a story?
Along.
Are these just stories? Jason himself says that none of these things happen, that history is all background. Where can we draw the line? And even if there's math that supports it, the math could be planted. I mean, let's be real, folks. I am a fan. I am a supporter. But if we can't have this discussion, that's unfortunate.
Well, and how would we know if everything's made up? How would we know? We wouldn't know.
Well,
it's like what we choose to believe.
So you have a growing, on that subject, you have a growing portion. I don't know, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the majority of people, but many people in this community, this expanded community, even people on the edges and fringes of this community, have the same question. How much power do we have to change these outcomes? Now, for a very long time, Jason has basically said, or he's maintained, that they're set in stone. I have recently said, for example, in my interview with Karen Kasperlov, that I was using Jason's own quote, that if something is true anywhere, it's potentially true everywhere. So you did have somebody in his model, Enki Ina, came in, created a Great Pyramid, changed the simulation.
Mm-hmm.
So why could we not collectively change the simulation? I'm not saying that the simulation may not have utility, but I also don't care about that. I would be much more interested in being able to reach our potential and prove to ourselves that we have this power. And that's perhaps another thing that we're being challenged with, is the ability to step outside of even an alternative narrative to consider what power we actually have. Because I'm telling you, there is at least, let me finish this thought, and then I do want to hear your input very much. There is at least the possibility that we have the mainstream news, which is basically the biblical story and the
the academy's versions of history and science and all that. And then now we have this mainstream story with Archaix, but it's kind of like the mainstream news and the alternative news, and basically they're both not true. So could Archaix be playing the role of the alternative news to be a place of gathering for people who know that the mainstream news is a lie, but they haven't figured out that there are issues with the cataclysmic model as well that have to do with our own power and our consciousness and our ability to change it. But if we're being told we can't change it, we won't even try.
Well, I always feel like once people figure out something's a game, that they immediately start trying to figure out ways to manipulate it.
And they're pretty good at it. If you look
Yes.
at hackers.
Well, I think it's a human characteristic to, that is, I can't think of the word, but not just innovative, it's beyond that, but like there's a drive to figure things out and to make things better, push through limitations, any of those things.
I like it.
And it's actually, in actual video games. I mean, it is the challenge to try to figure things out and take things, either break through something or go to the next level that's kind of like beyond where you were.
It's often perceptual too, like in
Yeah,
a video
very
game,
much.
you might walk by the same clue, the same hidden passageway, and not even see it over and over again, but when you finally see it, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you grasp the potential of consciousness to actually change what we call reality, and you take that very real phenomenon to its logical conclusion, you can't just say, well, I don't, that doesn't exist. I mean, it's very difficult to back away from following that through to the end and realizing that, oh my gosh, if you can change something, if it's true somewhere, it can be true anywhere. And if it's true on one scale, it's very likely to be true on another scale. And if it's all holographic, it's all connected, it's all mirroring and at different sizes and scales and that kind of thing. So if we can change the movement of or the outcome of little tiny scientific experiments, we can change larger scale events. Lots of studies have been done on the Maharishi effect and meditation, and people just sitting around in a room for a while and lowering the crime rate all around them, and maybe even all around the world. And I mean, these are very documented phenomena.
Well, it just makes me feel like we don't fully know the outcome. That nothing. I don't know. I feel like it's not completely set in stone. We have yet to see how things will trend. Based on belief systems is kind of what it feels like. There's a whole other personal path, I'm sure, and stuff that you in particular have been studying, shamanic pieces. But as a collective, you really have to, if that's a large piece of the power of different collectives driving stories, driving the game, then we have to see how that evolves, and what people want to create, It's like people are still powerful. Just because there's all this history doesn't mean that, you don't have influence over this reality.
Yeah, and obviously you have the mainstream that's being conditioned to create a certain kind of reality. And then you have people who are thinking outside that box, who are beginning to consider this kind of subject matter, who are beginning to break away from that and envision other different outcomes. I would call the mainstream outcome very low vibe, and I would call the other outcomes generally higher vibe. I know in the law of one, there's a sense that if you wanted to call this low vibe kind of negative and and the high vibe positive, just for nomenclature, that the positive is much more powerful than the negative. So you don't even need that many people on the positive frequency